It's the 1st of February 2020, and my upload today is with regard to the ongoing issues that are being caused for me since I got married and gave birth in 2015, and also with regard to issues that occurred over a decade ago between around 2004 and 2005. Um, this upload is with regard to the matters for those that ever need to put an account of their experiences in a victim impact statement. As I've said, the authorities and politicians have been aware of my circumstances, and as I've also stated, there hasn't been the support services or advocacy that victims are entitled to um, being provided in my situation for some reason or another. For a victim and a law-abiding citizen to be experiencing this kind of a circumstance is quite strange. It makes a person wonder how many, people would be in such positions of victimization as I am at the moment. Um, as I've said in my previous uploads, I've been in recovery since 2006, and you know, as a teacher and as a peace campaigner and as a humanitarian, with absolutely no offences perpetrated against anyone, um, you know, I'm just I'm just absolutely baffled how in a community this could be actually facilitated and how supports and advocacy have been withheld. Um, even with victims of crime or victims of hate crime, even attending court or making a court appearance, there'd always be, support for an individual that would be victimized or violated. So I've been contacting um, the relevant agencies, as I've said, since these wrongdoings really started in 2017. I've also stated how the incident over 10 years ago was a closed chapter with the help of recovery. But as I've also stated, the issue of family property and the issue of the defamation that I've experienced have led to an obstruction of justice. So the matters that I've had to relay in this victim impact statement haven't been particularly easy. There's been quite a lot happening for me, and I've had to cope with it unsupported and independently as well. Um, this has caused a very vulnerable situation for me as a citizen, because when people are causing these kind of offences and wrongdoings, um, it kind of gives the culprits a kind of, a free rein about what they're saying and doing, and it kind of leaves the victim more vulnerable. Um, so, as I've also stated in previous uploads, the systematic assault of a person's constitutional and human rights are, intentional by culprits targeting a person that they would choose to see suffering and losing and, you know, being victimized. So my hierarchy of needs, as I've stated, has been pretty much desecrated. I'm a qualified teacher, no criminal offences, no involvement in criminality, no antisocial behaviour, and I'm unemployed, and I'm a good teacher. I've taught in Germany, taught in the UK, and I've taught in Ireland. And only up to 2015 or 2016 after giving birth, I was working. And as I've stated, I wouldn't have been able to do so if I had a criminal record or if I had, But unfortunately, my unemployment has led to very serious effects on my quality of life and my livelihood. As well as that, there's been opportunities that I have worked for and that I would have earned that have also been, just pillaged by those that have been involved in this vendetta. Um, Basically, it's been identity theft, financial theft, and soul theft. And that is the most serious aspect, the final point that I mentioned there, simply due to my hereditary. Um, my bloodline is quite extraordinary and interesting, and that has been disrespected. My bloodline has been so disrespected. I'm appalled, and I'm wondering what conscience have the authorities about hereditary and genealogical matters that have been affected and disrespected in this vendetta of identity theft, financial theft, and soul theft. So this is all a very difficult matter. Authorities and politicians still haven't acknowledged the issues that have been caused for me. My human rights as a European citizen and as an Irish citizen have not been respected. And it's unfathomable that in 2020, a qualified professional, a law-abiding citizen, and a victim of hate crime and human rights violations is in the circumstances that I'm in. So, as I've mentioned, 2006, my recovery commenced, and since marrying a landowner, property owner, the violations and wrongdoings have exacerbated. What started as probably a minor little false claim in 2016 has gotten a little bit more serious, especially due to how people were claiming to have knowledge about matters in 2017 that they don't have any knowledge of at all. The issue of all of this that I find quite serious is that as a member of the fellowship and as a humanitarian and as a spiritual sentient being, to have experienced the violations and the exploitation that I've experienced is quite frightening. People, as I've said, when they're victimizing or targeting an individual that they want something from, or that they want to harm, or that they want to exploit or shame or impoverish or whatever, as in my circumstances, they systematically set about destroying the target's hierarchy of needs. And as a deserted wife and as a mother and as a qualified professional, as a law-abiding citizen, living in public accommodation that's been undermined, defamed and disrespected, for authorities and politicians not to confront or to safeguard a person such as myself, or any other citizen for that matter that's in these kind of circumstances, is quite outrageous. So that brings me to think at what cost are people prepared to perpetrate such serious violations and wrongdoings? There's petty issues that have initiated these kind of matters, and that would be jealousy, rivalry, envy, greed, and notoriety, or the attempt to have a little bit of notoriety for causing and taking and making these kind of problems. Um, there's also been the issue of people helping themselves to what doesn't belong to them. And there's also been the issue of people laying claim on what they haven't created and what they haven't given birth to. So, as I've said, I've been working for quite a while on my um, progress or whatever, my developments that I've been um, preparing for as my objective, professional objective, since 2006. And since giving birth and getting married, um, there has been a systematic um, this creation of my work. So I'm quite insulted by what's going on in this town. There's people um, claiming to be something that they're not. They're sending messages they're sending out messages that aren't honest, that aren't accurate. And, you know, identity theft is in many ways. It can be with a simple, matter of an account, financial account. It can be as simple as, there's different types of identity theft, but in my circumstances, the issue of identity theft is more serious. Um, and, that's another matter. The financial theft, as I've said, there's been an intentional impoverishment caused for me. I have been defamed, and that's back since 2006. And my career and my opportunities have been disrespected, and there have been people that have damaged my livelihood and that have exploited my work and that have prospered and gained from what they stole from me. So I've mentioned about the violations of faith and spirituality. These are all very serious. And in the changing climate that we have these days, I think for any woman, um, a royal or not, but a spiritual being, that is experiencing what I'm experiencing is absolutely shameful. And there might be people taking exception to me speaking about what is of concern for me as a victim, but these are matters that are of relevance because there's a publicity machine that sends out the wrong messages and that deceives people and that deludes people into thinking that their wealth can buy their way into what doesn't belong to them or what they haven't worked for. And collectively orchestrated vendettas that I'm, the victim of in this circumstance um, has caused a lot of trouble and expense for people. And I'm absolutely shocked as an adult and as a respectful citizen of this country and as a professional that the authorities and politicians haven't had it in them to show me the same level of respect and professionalism that I have been able to practice with those that I've encountered. So, health is wealth. And as I've mentioned, there's been at least 4 incidents of medical incompetence that I've encountered, and I'm treating my ailments myself. I'm unemployed when I should be happily working as a teacher and living contentedly as a mother and wife, but I've been deserted and wronged and abused by a community because of other people's issues of rivalry and jealousy, envy, and greed. So this is all what's involved in this, and it's quite serious that I haven't heard from the civil liberty organisations. I haven't been consulted about like matters that have involved what's relevant for me to contribute to. Um, there have been blatant violations of privacy and breaches of confidentiality, and people discussing and accosting me and just insulting me without ever having had any confrontation or engagement or interaction with me. And like to have experienced this since I got married, whether it's just because of property or whether it's because of other people's notions of, authority, um, I'm very concerned for this to be happening in society. Um, I'm wondering, you know, with the level or extent of financial theft, um, identity theft, soul theft, etc., 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 intellectual property theft, I'm just wondering what kind of mentality have, or what kind of conscience even, have those involved about this kind of a matter that has repercussions for everyone. Because as I've said, the body is a temple, and all sentient beings are sacred, and all our bloodlines are precious, and so is our privacy. And mine has been disrespected. And how are the politicians and the relevant ministers that I have contacted ignoring this, and at what cost? Do you know? At what cost? Because women's rights, human rights, children's rights, marital rights, medical rights, all of these things matter. And these are what I've had to contend with in my victim impact statement. And I've sought protection as a citizen that I'm entitled to for the wrongdoings that I've experienced as a preventative measure against the retaliatory actions of those that have caused this problem. And I still haven't gotten feedback. Um, the other matter is that the, you know, authorities that are aware of the circumstances haven't addressed these issues with me. And why not? Why haven't they contacted me about what I need to be informed of, and who is preventing me from being informed of what I need to be consulted about? So people are being pretty brazen and pretty disrespectful because, as I've said, as a spiritual sentient being that has been very seriously wronged in society, and this is, going back to 2017, and it's now 2020. Um, you know, it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. And to have experienced the violations of privacy that I've experienced, and people assuming to know when they don't know me and don't know anything that, you know, could quantify or qualify what they're saying without proper engagement or interaction. Um, you know, that's how, the defamation I've experienced is so serious. So I'm here in my public accommodation. I'm a HAPS tenant. I'm a qualified teacher, mother. I've been a peace campaigner since 2006. I was over in The Hague in 2000 working for climate change. And the climate I'm seeing these days isn't that great with, how things are progressing. And it's just absolutely shocking that human rights violations could be happening in this town and county. The obstruction of justice is horrendous, and especially for a person that's, experienced assault in the past and revenge porn and defamation, to be undermined and disrespected and isolated in society because of people's inability to confront the damage that they've done, and to even think that any further assistance would be provided to such individuals to accommodate their discomfort at confronting the wrongdoings that they've perpetrated, and to avoid, um, you know, the financial amends that I'm due to this obstruction of justice and constitutional wrongdoings, are all a factor in this vendetta. So, as I've said, my medical concerns are my priority, my family are my priority, and my family have also been disrespected. Um, as a mother, that's not easy to say, and it's quite injurious to a country's reputation, unfortunately, when this kind of a matter is being facilitated. So my hometown is Tralee, County Kerry. This is where I've been born. And as I've said in the past, I've contributed very positively to my community. And I've been very severely exploited and wronged. And I'm just wondering how such a situation as this is being accommodated. It's absolutely horrendous. And what kind of a message does that go out to any intelligent individuals, any professionals, you know? The way that people think by not just isolating and defaming and suppressing and undermining and endangering and threatening and intimidating and harassing and, you know, these are all the things that happen to victims. But to think that you can just abuse the system to get what you want, um, and to pay your way into circumstances that you don't belong to is very it's all after causing sinister concerns, and that's from a sociological perspective, and it's from an emotional perspective, it's from a humane perspective, because there are professionals in this situation that aren't being very professional at all. And I'm worried about people's mental health if they think that this kind of a situation is going to breed any kind of sanity. Because when there's no honesty, there's no integrity, um, and when when a deceptive circumstance is relayed to society, who do people think they're fooling? Because you know wrongdoings come at an awful cost, and so does injustice. And I'm very insulted of by what has happened, and justifiably so. And there's an election coming up in this country, and the politicians up in Dáil Éireann, I'm wondering what they stand for. I'm wondering, does the Constitution and any of our rights and my rights, do they matter? And does this country know what it owes me for the 4 incidents of medical incompetence that has occurred, and the violations of my faith, and the bodily integrity violations that I've experienced, and etc., etc., etc.? So when I'm sharing in my uploads, it's only a day-to-day account for those that are being kept abreast of these matters of hatred, and how simply they can occur with just an incident of intrusion and a false claim regarding personal matters. But this has spiraled out of control with regards to the wrongdoings, because injustice is occurring, and I haven't been consulted as I should have been consulted, and I'm not receiving the legal assistance that I should be receiving, and I'm not being, provided with what I'm owed. So I'm quite disgusted. I'm absolutely disgusted that as an adult, and as a woman, and as a teacher, humanitarian, and as a mother, that my government and my country have been doing this to me. So, you know, this is 2020, and Taoiseach and the politicians in the Dáil still haven't contacted me. And I've been up all night having to put together a victim impact statement. And I don't have to lie about anything. I don't have to make any false claims. I don't have to make, you know, any pathetic attempts to get what wouldn't be mine. I've worked for what was mine, and people have collectively and intentionally and maliciously and pathetically caused the most serious of issues without consideration for the future and without consideration for the bigger picture, because the climate of change, as I'm saying, is, you know, is it evolution or is it not? Are people being mature? Are they being respectful? Are they having integrity? Not in this circumstance. There's been a lot of petty playground tactics of people not being able to confront their wrongdoings and having to tell the most outrageous, cynical, and silly of tales. So that's This is, and there's people talking about things that they shouldn't be talking about. My family life, my marriage, my personal life isn't for anyone else to be discussing. But my past and my personal life and my profession have all been disrespected and defamed. So, to a certain extent, I can understand why politicians are avoiding this matter and ignoring it. But I hope they realise that doing so is quite serious, and not confronting me or consulting me about what concerns me is also very serious, because there's been other people affected and there's been scaremongering and scapegoating going on. And, you know, it's absolutely outrageous. This is what's happening. So that's my upload for today. And this is a human rights issue, whether people want to acknowledge that in Europe or not. And I'm in Tralee, County Kerry. This is my hometown. This is where I belong. And, you know, I haven't any intentions of going anywhere. And there isn't anyone with any authority to, be furthering the violations that have already been caused. And I'm still waiting for transparency to contact me with regard to the wrongdoings I've experienced and the protection that I've requested due to the retaliatory actions that could be potentially occurring due to the culprits unable to compensate and rectify and explain the damages that they have done. So if people are taking exception to what I have to say, I hope they understand how I'm taking great exception to my hereditary, my bloodline, my genealogy, my faith, my health, my family, my profession, my home, my county being disrespected. Um, you know, so we don't always like what we have to hear or listen to, but this is very relevant for the politicians, whether they'd like to acknowledge that or not, because health is wealth, and there are some circumstances you can't buy into or buy yourself out of. And I'm just wondering why transparency and the civil liberty organisations still haven't contacted me with regard to all of these offences that have been occurring. So that's my upload for the 1st of February 2020, and it's a sad sign of the times.